Good morning. It's Trish. I'm here with Heidi. We are the Hip Homeschool Moms, and we're here for our Mentoring Mom Show. And it has been one of those mornings already. Google changed on us, huh?
They did. I almost didn't make it in.
I was having a heart attack because I was going to be here by myself, and I'm not really good at, well, I am good at talking to myself, but y'all would not enjoy listening to me talk to myself. So I was like, Heidi, no, you've got to be here. You've got to be here. Dorinda did not make it in. I don't know what's going on. Google changed the way that we access our Hangout, and so it's really confusing. It took me 15 minutes to figure it out this morning, calling Leanne, going, Leanne, help, help, and Leanne couldn't get on because she has to go to work. So anyway, it's a little bit of a challenge this morning, but we're here. Technical difficulties aside, we're here. And we've had a lot of moms start school this week. So
I'm kind of jealous. I just
are
got to
you?
say, yeah,
I know.
as much as I enjoy the summer vacation, so to speak, I miss the routine. Now we all know I love my routines and my checklists and so on, and I kind of miss the routines. I miss that kind of structured flow of the day, so to speak.
I know.
I
I
don't know.
know
I
in the
enjoy
same
watching
way.
watching everyone post and post their pictures and talk about it on HHM and other communities. And I'm kind of jealous. I still got another month. We don't start till after Labor Day. So
Well, we're not starting until after Labor Day either, but and we certainly don't have any kind of schedule going on, and it is driving. You know me, I normally homeschool all year, so for me to not be homeschooling, it's really hard. It's really, really hard. I have two that are still asleep, and it's 10 o'clock. So that's crazy.
I wish mine
So,
slept that late. I don't get that luxury.
mm,
Mine are up, except my teenager because she's a teenager. But we are actually painting here in our house, so she is up because she is completely redoing her whole room. So she's
we're doing the same thing. We're doing the
painting.
same thing.
Yeah.
See, we're all on the same path, and that's why I'm not starting till after Labor Day because I've got too much to do, way too much to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we need to really focus on getting that done too. Okay, so Lisa is going to try to be here. Lisa is wandering around another city looking for Wi-Fi as we speak. So she's going to end up at Starbucks drinking Starbucks, and y'all know it. So
Yeah.
anyway, we're just getting to watch her drink her Starbucks. So, but one of the things that we thought we'd talk about today, and it's going to be a little bit of a different show. We're not going to do Q&A, so to speak. We're just going to talk. It would have been much nicer if Dorinda and Lisa would have been here, just so Heidi and I didn't have to carry the whole conversation, huh? And we are so much alike that you're
That's what
not
I was
getting a
going to
whole
say.
lot of diversity. So, but that's okay. They get us, and that's how it is. And hopefully Lisa will be able to pop in when she finds Wi-Fi. But what we thought we'd do is talk about the things that new homeschool moms are experiencing right now. We saw in our group so many people, like Heidi was just talking about, so many people that have started homeschool or getting ready to start homeschool, and all the things that they're dealing with, the emotions, the fear, the success or the not successes. Their failures are not really failures, but challenges and stumbling blocks that they're hitting. And so, we thought we'd talk about a little bit of those and see if we just can't encourage y'all. So
I'm
we'll see.
I'm actually reading a book right now that pertains not necessarily directly to this, but you talked about the failures, the stumbles, the
Mm-hmm.
and I'm reading a book that taught No More Perfect Kids. And it actually talks about your perfection infection and
Mm-hmm.
how you get this ideal and how we do very much in today's age of technology see people posting their happy photos on Instagram and Facebook and you kind of get this image. You look at magazines of these perfect kitchens or whatever it is, and we have this ideal of what we think something should be, and then when that doesn't meet what our ideal is, then that obviously causes problems. And
What's the
that
name of
is
it?
it's called No More Perfect Kids.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
um, it's really good. The authors wrote apparently No More Perfect Moms, I think it was, as well. I haven't read that one, but I'm reading No More Perfect Kids, and I'm really finding a lot of really useful thoughts about how I view myself, how I view the kids.
It's interesting you bring that up because the post I go back and review posts that have been shared over the years around the same time, um, because this just because it was written a year ago or 2 years ago, there's still valuable information in there. And there was one that I posted day before yesterday, and it was called "'Twas the Night Before Public School Starts."
Yep.
And then the second one I posted was I kissed perfection goodbye. So
Yep.
we're on the same
I know, and I
same
had to
thought
chuckle when I
process.
saw them because I was thinking the same thing. And I think that we really fall into that with homeschooling. I mean, look at right now, we're seeing just tons of pictures of other people's schoolrooms, of, people's first days, and you get this idea of what you think your homeschool is going to be, what you think your day is going to be like. And I mean, this happens with lots of other phases of life too, but you get this idea and then you start homeschooling, and that's what we're talking about. You start the
Hmm.
year and it doesn't meet your ideal picture. It doesn't meet your expectation because you've set the bar so high already for what you thought it should be. And it's really not about what you think it should be. It's about what it is and about finding what is working for, what's working for you. And I know I am a super duper, I'm a perfectionist type A. So I am always fighting my expectations of what I think things should be. And, like I said, the book I'm reading talks about meeting everything where it is. Like it doesn't have to be something else. It is what it is. Your children, whether they are they're the athlete or the musician or that may not be what you are, but you need to meet them there and relate to them and love them there. And
Hmm.
I think that goes for the start of homeschooling. You see other, all these other things being posted right now, and you can kind of get a blown up expectation of what you think it's going to be. And you need to give yourself and your kids some grace to be where you are at and deal with the situations or whatever it is that, is or isn't working in your own situation. And try really hard not to compare it to the pictures or the ideals that you're seeing, posted so frequently right now at this time of year.
I think you're right. I think it's so hard because moms do go in with their own expectations. It's not even necessarily, and sometimes I guess it's family, and those around us, but really we are our worst enemies almost when it comes to expectations. So that's probably the first great advice we can give is to um, the goal, to remember what the goal is, the big picture goal. The big picture goal, and then work towards it, but don't get too caught up in the minutia, especially when you first start out. That first year is a roller coaster ride, isn't it? I mean, you're second guessing yourself, you're second guessing your curriculum, you are scared you're going to fail, which you're not. You're going to do great. Long as you're trying, you're going to do great. And that's the point, is try. One of the moms was said, she was scared to death to even start. And I'm like, well, start. Just start. Even if it's just one subject, start. You don't have to do it perfectly. It doesn't have to have any, don't think you have to start with all of your classes all at once. Just start. Actually, that's how I started. I 6 years ago started with one subject. I think we did science. I think we started with science, and we did a month of science before I brought in any other subjects because I was so intimidated about it. So I think starting slow and giving yourself a lot of space and cut yourself some slack, and don't throw those expectations out the window. That first year, I can tell you, whatever your expectations were, some days may meet them, most days won't, right?
No, because we're people, and you're learning. You're learning. Not only will you learn new information from what you're teaching your kids, but you're learning about yourself. You're learning about your kids. You're learning about homeschooling and what your version of homeschooling looks like. So everybody's on a learning curve. I mean, I still am, and I'm 9 years in, and I started homeschooling a high schooler last year. First time, doing the high school thing. And I felt like a newbie all over again. It was, I don't know, a whole another ball of wax, a whole different set of kind of issues and things to consider and think about. And, and we tried some things and they didn't work. So we've thrown them out the window and, we've tried some other things. And just because you think something might work doesn't mean it will. I know the first year when we started, I had just had a baby. I had a
Mm,
toddler at home, and I started homeschooling my second grader. And I lasted a month and a week or so. It was in October sometime, and I had a complete and utter meltdown. And we
mm,
sent the older two off to my parents' house. My husband took a couple days off from work and just kind of tried to like breathe deep and reset because my expectations of what I was going to be able to get done and what I needed to get done were just so high. And
mm.
so we just had to completely, kind of rethink and slow down. And, you know, life changes and it doesn't always work out the way you think it's going to. But, in the end, I certainly can't say, oh, well, we didn't meet expectations or we haven't learned or we haven't loved or we haven't grown because we have. It just might have looked different than what I thought it was going to look like when I started.
Yeah. And unless even if Heidi and I are a lot alike in the way we homeschool and our way of organizing it and thinking through it and presenting it. We're not exactly alike, but we're very much alike. And our personalities are a whole lot alike too. We're both control freaks. Shh, we won't tell anybody. Um, and so really, I mean, I think we're just type A, and I think type A's lend themselves to that. But having, a plan is something that we really need to help us feel organized. But as close as we are in the way we do things, I can guarantee you she would not be able to step into my homeschool and pick up where I am, and I couldn't step into her homeschool and pick up where she is. They're very unique, and that's the thing that's so wonderful about homeschooling is that you get to tailor it. I also know that when you first start out, that's the part that scares you to death. You want a recipe. You want this is what works, this is what doesn't work, and this is what you should do. And you can follow somebody's recipe that first year, but you need to realize that that recipe might not work for you and your children, right? So
Yeah,
you're going to have to get back to the point that you trust your own intuition. You as a mom know that you know how to be a mom, and you do also know how to homeschool. You just don't know that you know how to homeschool.
right.
So,
Well, and you learn as you go. And I was just reading one of the threads, I believe in the HHM community, and someone was talking about, that they were doing some sort of, I don't know if it was like a charter, I don't know, it was,
mhm,
but they were doing something online, a school online with their
mhm,
kids, and it was like $1,500 or something, and they were, kind of wondering about all because they're seeing everyone, picking and choosing their curriculums and stuff, and and someone made the comment about how a lot of times first year people will do something like that or buy a full just box curriculum for the year, but then ultimately what happens is you start to realize what is working and what isn't for your family. So what you start out with may change, and so
mhm.
once you like you buy that box curriculum at the beginning of the of your homeschooling, and that's your security blanket. It's like, okay, I know if nothing else, if I open up this box, that pretty much what I need is in here, and if I can cover the majority of this, I'm good. And then you take that stuff and it's like, oh, well, I don't really like the way this is done, and you find, oh, it's like, oh, I liked this better, or and you kind of ebb and flow and pull things in and take things out that work. So I think ultimately then when you get in a few years homeschooling, you're the one that's, on here going, oh, look at, I got this for this and this for that, and you've learned more about yourself, about your kids, about the flow and what works for you, and so then you can more adeptly choose varying things. I mean, my kids don't learn the same. They use
Yeah.
different things some of the time, and some of them they use the same things. But in other ways they're different. And so what I thought, oh, I'm going to invest in this curriculum, whatever it is, like say teaching textbooks. I bought teaching textbooks, and I thought, oh, all three of my kids are going to use teaching textbooks. Well, that's the case right now. It might not be. I've done other subjects where that hasn't been the case, and I've bought something and it's worked for my first, and it was like, yeah, there's no way my second is, or my third is going to be, a good fit for this.
Well,
So,
you brought up a really good point that up until recently, um, I was one of those that I was like, the can, buying a packaged curriculum would not be me. And um, I didn't start that way, but I had never thought through why somebody might purchase a packaged curriculum. And I was very fortunate when I first started out that I had a ton of homeschool moms around me, not in my necessarily in my neighborhood, but where I had access to them, where I could call them and talk to them and get their opinions and get support. But uh, I did not think about that mom, like you were just talking about, that doesn't really have that kind of support system, that feels very strongly that if she uses a packaged curriculum, that that's going to guide her through it, and that, at worst case scenario, her kids are going to get that. And I actually have been converted in the last year or so. I've actually been saying, you might want to consider starting there. You may not stay there. You may stay there. It may suit your family perfectly or
yeah,
not. But it is a way for that first year when you're so concerned and unsure of yourself. I think that's the part of it, is you're just unsure about your capabilities and the direction and that the all the different options. We think when people from the outside are looking in, looking at homeschool, they think we're all the same. But after you get inside and you start talking to all the homeschoolers in here, you realize how different we are. And there's thousands of curriculum out there. It is hard to pick a curriculum if you don't know which ones are good and which ones are bad. And so I understand that boxed, packaged curriculum is extremely attractive, and I've actually started not recommending it, but certainly telling them to consider it. It might be something you
right.
want to consider because it is so easy to implement. And if you are questioning your ability, your skills, your knowledge, your ability to stay on track, your whatever it is, that might be an answer. It may not
Yeah.
be, but you use it for, it won't hurt to use it for a year. But unless your child is completely hating it. If your child hates it, don't keep going. You're just going to make him hate school.
Hmm.
And we don't want him to hate homeschool. That's the last thing we want, right? So, they can hate a lot of things, in their world, but not homeschool. Let's not hate homeschool. So, yeah, if it's not working for them, then you need to then you come to our group and ask questions and start talking to moms and say, this is how my child learns. But that's the other thing. Moms don't really because we have outsourced this, not intentionally, not purposefully, but our culture teaches us that we should outsource the education of our children. And so we've bought into it. We bought into the lie, another one of the lies, and we have allowed that to happen. So we've sort of outsourced and given up our authority or our opinion, and now it's almost like we have to retrain ourselves that we are capable. So, yeah.
Well, because people make you believe that if you don't have a teaching degree, you're not qualified to teach, and that's not really the case. I mean, especially when you're talking about your home, your own children, you don't need to prove to other people that you know how to teach something. It's really not about teaching, it's about learning.
And it's funny because I learned so much. I think there's a couple of different ways when you approach homeschooling, you think of this. And I'm going to recommend one way, and I think you're going to be exactly the same way as I am. Um, if you approach homeschooling that you have all the answers, sooner or later your kids are going to figure out you don't. So I never started there. I never started from a position of I know it all, and therefore I'm the answer person. You come to me to get the answer. We always were about researching the answer together, and I was always willing to say I didn't know the answer. And then, when things are not working or you're having to morph or change, they don't look at you like, oh, you didn't know how to do this. Uh, so I don't
It's
know. I think
it's a standard answer in our house. It happens on a daily basis. We'll be driving somewhere, and the kids will come up with some random question, and I'm always like, I don't know. Let's look it up when we get home. I seriously think, and I've heard people suggest this, that we should carry around a notebook to write
I
down all
know.
of the questions, because then I'll often forget them, or they'll go by the wayside. And I know I've heard people suggest like carry like a little notebook around, keep it in the car or whatever, and as questions come up, you can write them down so that you can look at them later, because the kids, they'll have random questions about whatever. If they happen to have seen something, they see something, it sparks their mind to something, whatever, and they'll have questions. And I'm constantly like, I don't know, guys, let's, we can look it up when we get home, kind of thing, because that's, I've always felt very strongly that it's more about knowing how and who to whom to ask the questions, whether that be to some physical person, that
Yeah.
is an expert in something or happens to have knowledge of something, or that be by being able to go to the library or to get on the internet and find the information that you need. I'm a big advocate of, you don't have to know everything. You have
No.
to know, how and where to ask. You have to know how to
And have
find the
to
information.
be able to determine if it's credible. That's the
Yeah.
other thing. I think in today's world, I was actually talking to the telephone guy. I had a telephone guy here yesterday, and kept taking my internet up and down. But anyway, um, we were having this conversation, and when he found out I homeschooled, he was really intrigued. If y'all started back, he was asking a lot of questions, as they always do. You know how that goes. And he was talking about that. We were talking about that in today's world, that it's more about, even his tests for he's an AT&T guy, even his certifications were open book, because the professor said, it's not about having all this information crammed in your head. It's about knowing how to find the information and then use it, apply it. And
Yeah.
so, but there is that credibility factor. In today's world, we actually have more information at our fingertips than we've ever had in our, in history. And so helping them determine what is credible is just as important, in today's world. So we do that. We focus on that. We talk about how to research, but we also talk about how to determine if it's credible. And sometimes it looks really credible. I mean, like Wikipedia. My kids think Wikipedia is the end all be all, and I'm like, well, let's talk about how Wikipedia came to be and where those answers came from. And
Well, and
now let's
people
see.
can change them.
Exactly.
Wikipedia is more of an open forum, like Ask or Why or what are they? There's always one of those other ones that, but Wikipedia just seems like an encyclopedia format, so it
Mhm.
seems more credible. But you can't. I always tell the kids, you can look there, but
Yeah.
you better look somewhere else too, like that. You can look there and see what it says, but you need to look, somewhere else too, because that is not the end all be all of answers. And I always had issues even growing up in school with the fact that, you had to cram so many formulas into your head, whether it be for chemistry or for math, or you shouldn't have to remember them all, especially in this age of technology. You should know how to use them and when they need to be used in what situations, but I find it incredibly just daunting. Maybe back in Little House on the Prairie time, when there just wasn't as much, there wasn't as much history, there just wasn't as much volume of content to remember. So
Right.
that was maybe realistic. But now, just the plethora and the endless amounts of information, that you can't expect somebody to remember or know it all. And I'm very much, I tell our kids, my daughter just took an integrated physics and chemistry last year for science, and you could choose to have the exams be open book or closed. And finally, because she struggled some, and I finally said, what, before you take the exam, make a list of all, as you're going through, make a list of the important formulas for chemistry and that, and
Yeah.
just and use those, and let's see how you
Yeah.
do. Because it wasn't that she didn't understand concepts or know things, but to remember every little bit of some of these formulas for chemistry is a lot.
Yeah.
And so it's not that you have to cram all the information into your head. It's that have to
Or
know
your
where to
children's
find
head.
it. Yeah, or yeah, yeah, or in your children's head. They just, and so for me, like I said, that was a frustration for me when I was in school. I always thought it was ridiculous. Like, we should have been able to take a list of formulas into a chemistry exam or a math exam or whatever. And as long as you knew how to apply, what problems and how to apply them, it shouldn't, that shouldn't be an issue. And so as much
Right.
as possible, I try and do those things with our kids. It's really only taken, its form for my high school. At the younger ages, it's not an issue. And
Right.
and so I think that that's important, and it's important as a change in the type of technology and the amount of access to information we have. Like you said, for the guy you had in yesterday, they were able to do open book. You don't have to memorize everything. You have to know where to find the information and and,
Exactly.
and determine that it's credible information.
So for these other moms that, the moms that are starting, what other issues, we know that they have, the natural questions and the natural concerns about picking the right curriculum, and that's always, I think, the hardest when they first start out is, knowing which one to get. But what other advice would you say would be valuable for them at this stage? Don't look for perfection. Don't compare. I think that's another big one we talk about.
I think another big issue when you're starting, and I even honestly have this myself now 9 years later, when you don't homeschool year round, or like if you're starting for the first time, starting after a break, after any
Mm,
break, like take 2 weeks off and starting again is really difficult. I remember being so shocked by that when, yes, I struggled greatly, when I first started for the first time in September and I had to take a break. But then I didn't realize taking a couple weeks off for Christmas how hard it was going
Yep.
to be. And so,
Yes.
and it's not like you have a change, so to speak. When kids go off to school, they're up, they're backpacked, they're on the bus, or they're driven to another, driven to school. It's a change. But when you're home, whether you're homeschooling that day or not, there's not a real distinct, okay, it's time to start again. And to get back into that flow, I think can be really difficult. And
That's the exact reason I homeschool year round.
yeah,
You just hit the nail on the head on why I homeschool is, yes, I like routine just like you do. I like, organization just like you do. But I can't imagine. I actually feel sorry for the teachers that are in public school or even traditional school that have, 30 bouncing kids come back in August or September. Can you imagine trying to corral all of them? I have a
tough.
newfound respect for teachers after just
Yeah.
my three.
And then after Christmas and then after spring break is really, I mean, we pretty much fall to pieces after spring break. So now I'm always like on this, all right, we have to get everything. We usually go away, sometime in April or like the beginning of May, and that's our spring break. And I usually now I'm trying to get everything done before then, because when we come back, New York is, supposed to be starting to have nice weather, and we just, it's like, oh, it's like we're a dog and we see a squirrel. It's like, squirrel, squirrel, gotta go outside. So I think that for moms starting out, that you have to be wary of that, and just know that even, once you get through that hurdle of starting in September or August, whenever you started your year, that you may have a transition period when you start up after a break. It's hard to kind of get back in the flow. Oftentimes what we'll do is the first, couple days that we start back, we'll just slow into it a little bit. And maybe not, I may not schedule every subject for the first couple of days, and just, whatever, kind of
Yep.
ease, ease back in, because it is so hard to fall back into a routine when you're not changing the location.
I know, I know. That is so true. That is, and that may be, I'm not going to say that for sure, but the luxury of being able to have a schedule, it is wonderful. But I'll tell you a secret, or at least for me, I don't put the dates on. I don't use my calendar as a forward-looking calendar. I use my calendar as a backward-looking calendar, if that makes sense. So it's a log. It's a journal of what we've done instead of a plan of what we're doing. Now, I have that big spreadsheet, that I have done all the way through high school what they're going to do, right? I literally have it all the way through 12th grade, even for my 10-year-old. But in reality, that gets changed every single year. We might add stuff, we might take stuff off,
Oh, yeah.
like we were talking about how things don't work. So I don't even plan next week what's on my agenda, on their
No, I
agenda.
I plan in, so to speak, in chunks. Like, now I'm starting this school year, and well, we're going to be starting in a month. So now this is my planning month. I start to get going. So, say I've chosen teaching textbooks for math.
Hmm.
However many number of lessons there are, and they vary by which one which grade you're using. But say there's 150 lessons.
Right.
So I divide that out by the number of weeks that I'm planning on schooling throughout the year, because now I used to school year round, and last year started taking,
Right. Hmm.
July and August off. So I'll spread it out and say, okay, and now, like this year, I tried to be done by the end of May, so that, there was only with the core subjects like math, grammar, language, arts. I tried to be done with the core stuff, so that in June we could do some fun art projects, do some fun nature studies, more field trip type stuff because the weather gets nicer. So what I do is I take those 150 lessons, whatever it is, and I divide it out amongst the weeks that I planned on schooling for the year. And it may be like, 4.2, so I'm like, okay, on average, I have to cover 4 days a week of math,
Hmm.
and that,
Hmm.
that's kind of how I do it. And I use Homeschool Tracker, so I will literally log the lesson plans into Homeschool Tracker. So each one of those 150 lessons would be in teaching textbooks grade 6. And then each week I print out an assignment sheet for the kids, I would just drag the lessons over from the teaching textbooks log to their assignment sheets. And so I can easily float, if we're only doing 3 this week because we had an extra field trip, and next week we're doing 5 because we're home every week, every day. And so
Hmm.
that's how I do it, is I take the entire year of what I want to cover, and kind of divide it out, mass divide it, and go, okay, I really should be covering this twice a week. I really should be. And then I just try and, plan my week out based on that. And if we have a 3-day week one week, then I'll try and add in a little more the next week. And it did worked out really well this year. We really averaged, and actually we did so well in some subjects. I had my kids, 2 of mine were done with their grammar and language arts stuff before it was like the last day in March. They were done with those things.
That's great.
So we were able to go away, and when we came back, it was like, oh, you got some math to finish up, you got a little bit of that to finish up. We're doing this science unit study, but the bulk of some things were already being completed.
That's
So that's how
great.
I plan. Like, I don't say, okay, this is week 1 and this is exactly what we're doing in this week.
Yeah.
I log everything into Homeschool Tracker as lesson plans, and then I just drag them in to the assignment sheets each week.
And that gives you the luxury of adjusting
Mhm.
if they're getting a concept, if they're struggling with a concept that they're going to have to, like with us with algebra. And this is the exact reason why I don't do the planning, where I'm doing it forward looking. Um, if they get stuck on a topic or a concept in algebra, it is not uncommon for us to have to go to 2 or 3 different resources to find something that helps them grasp the concept. But then we're still going to go back because we don't do, I think y'all have heard me say this before, but when we do both teaching textbooks and video text, but we don't do every single problem that's in the chapter. We do the
Right,
even or the odd. And so if they're struggling, that gives them some questions to go back and do. And so that's what we do. If they're struggling and they're not getting this concept, we'll go back and do the other set that they didn't do. And
right.
then we'll move forward. So we're really focusing on mastery, and some things they blow through, and then other chapters, they struggle with. And so this gave me the luxury of not stressing, to be honest, over expectations. We were talking about that earlier, the expectations.
Yeah,
I'm letting them work through it at their pace. If their pace is, you know, we have a day, I have a calendar. I should have had one out, but I don't. We have a calendar and we say, okay, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday we're going to work on math, but I don't tell them which chapters they have to work on math. It's, that's, they're just picking up where they are and going
right.
forward. So it's sort of the same thing. And I think that's something that first-time moms struggle with, is the schedule. How do we schedule? How many times do I teach this a week, and how many times do I teach that a week, and how much am I supposed to cover every day, and how much, they get, so focused on all that minutia that it's so overwhelming that, especially if they're not following a canned curriculum, like, a packaged curriculum like we were talking about earlier, if they're not following that, then it's really, flying by the seat of your pants and very scary. So
Well, then
I would definitely,
I used to get tied up in feeling like I had to do everything too. Like,
yeah.
and I'm sure that I've never bought a fully canned curriculum for everything, but I'm sure that's the case with that too, is, then you're also struggling with that expectation of, well, here's all this stuff, I have to get through it all. And I've been pleasantly surprised through the years now. I've had more and more um, curriculums or things that I've chosen for subjects that right up front say, you know what, there's a ton, we just gave you everything we got basically, and you need to pick and choose what you want to focus on, or what style or activity that you think is going to work best for your child.
Hmm.
And I really like that, because that's often what I do with things. Like you said, even with math, you do the odds or the evens. You choose not to do them all. And there's a lot of flexibility with other subjects with that kind of stuff as to how much of it you're going to do. We're starting a new geography curriculum for high school this year, and
What is it?
North
Um,
Star Geography, Bright Ideas Press. It's their new one
oh,
for
good.
high school, middle
Okay.
school, and high school. So we're starting at this year, and I mean, right off the bat, when you're reading through the intro and all that stuff, they say there is way more here than you're
You'll ever
probably
do.
going to. Right. So I mean, they start out by saying that, and I love that, and they give you just
Yeah,
tons of different activities or different things you can do, and they do give you sample kind of setups and say, sorry. We
that's
really,
okay.
they say
Nothing.
we really recommend that you at least cover this and this, like their highlights, and then you choose from here, what you want to do. And so, and I'm really, I like that. And the geography I'm using for my younger two is the Trail
Oh
Guide
yeah,
to,
love them.
and I love those. So I'm using Trail Guide to World Geography this year with my younger two, and that's the same. They have three different levels as far as like they break it up by grade, like grades 2 to 4. I think it's like five to 8, and whatever 9 and up. But they also have a lot of activities, and you can pick and choose. And so I think that's another thing to remember, is that just because a book has, or a curriculum or a plan has it in it, doesn't mean that you have to do it all.
Another thing that we haven't talked much about, and I don't think we've ever really talked about it a lot on our show ever, is all-inclusives. You were talking about Trail Guide to Geography or Trail Guide to Learning. One of the things that same company does is called Passive Exploration,
Hmm.
and I used it last year and absolutely loved it. Now, unfortunately, my kids are a little bit too old for it, to be perfectly honest. We did the middle school supplement, and I'm going to lose my voice. Excuse me, guys. But we did the middle school supplement, and it was really too young for them because, my oldest is going into high school too, as you know. And
Yep.
so I really wish I had found that earlier, but an all-inclusive is you take a subject, and obviously with passive exploration, well, it may not be obvious, it's history. It's history focused, and they use history to jump out into all the other topics. So their handwriting, their grammar, their science to a certain degree, their geography, are all covered in there. Um, I added in math, and I added in well, I added a lot in. I'm not good. I'm not good with inclusives, but if you had started with that and didn't already have all these other things that you were working with, it is fantastic. So it's another idea to think about for those moms starting out, is finding one like passive exploration that you can do and just use it to be that leap into all these other areas. And
Yep.
it's almost like an immersion. I loved it. Have you looked at it before? I know you've got two that would benefit, but you've got an older one too.
I do. Yeah. I haven't. I'm just one of those people that likes
I
to
know.
have uber control over each and everything that we do. So I don't often do things that are
Yeah.
super together. So I
I
I
didn't
have.
either. You know me. You know
I
how I
know.
am. But that one, it's good. It's really good. If anybody, if anybody, investigates it, they might like that. Okay, so let's transition a little bit to what happens. What advice do you give when when it's not going so well, when they're struggling? What would you say differently? What would you tell them to do? How would you help them work through it when the going gets tough? Because it's going to. At some point in time, there's going to be struggles. So, what do you say? Persevere?
Um, well, it depends on if you're struggling with a specific subject or if you're just struggling with your whole schedule in general. I know that I've had a little of both. I mean, I struggled with my now high schooler. We have been down the road and back again with math. And honestly, we got to a point where she hated it so much and I hated it so much that I threw it out the window for like the last 3 months of one of her years because I was just like, you know what? This is doing none of us any good. Like, this isn't good for you. This isn't good for me. Let's
Was it
just
good for
drop it.
her love of homeschooling, learning, etc.? So that was smart. That was really
And
smart.
you know what? She's not scarred for life. She's a sophomore this year. She's completed Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, and she's doing teaching textbooks geometry, which also includes trig, this year. So she wasn't scarred for life because I dropped it for,
And
for a few months.
not only did she catch up, she's ahead. So there
Yes.
you go.
Yeah,
See?
so she, and she still doesn't love math, but we've learned strategies to deal with it, and she struggled for a bit in Algebra 1, but now we use teaching textbooks. I've said that a lot, but she in Algebra 1, it grades for you, and so I'm not on top of her for everything. She's older. We always we work on transitioning our kids as they get into middle school to be independent in high school, or mostly independent. So I'm kind of the overseer. I'm the go-to if you have a question or whatever. But in general, she's responsible for taking care of her stuff. And we got to a point around Christmas time when she was doing Algebra 1, and I looked at her grades and was like, whoa, wait a second. Why are there so many in the 70s? Like, what is going on? To me, for me, I set the standard for her that for me to feel like you have some sort of mastery, you should be getting at least 80%. And if you haven't gotten 80%, then there's an issue. So we went back and spent Christmas break doing all of those lessons that Ava, children, they have
Yep.
headphones on
High
too,
school.
so they don't
This is
realize how
real
loud
world.
they are.
This is real world.
And so we went back and did all of those lessons again. We went through and my husband sat down with her, and no, she wasn't thrilled about it, but what it offered her then she got the concept, and math is building blocks. So if you
That's
don't
right. It's so important.
if you skip or you just let them slide by, then they're just going to struggle more as they go on. And so for me, when we're talking about if you're struggling and hitting a roadblock with your curriculum or with a specific subject, dump it, alter it, cut back on the amount of things you're choosing to do from it. Any of those things. I've written numerous posts on articles on this subject because it is something that I personally struggled with a lot with my now teenager. And as far as schedule, like I said, I think it goes back to having expectations. And lots of the moms that we see on Hip Homeschool Moms have multiple young children. They may be starting with a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old, but they have a couple little ones below them in age. And it really you have to have grace with yourself and the kids. And I think that when you have younger kids, I think it's often easier for moms to do little chunks of time instead of saying, okay, we're going to do 3 hours this morning or whatever. Instead, do 15, 20-minute chunks of stuff. My son struggled with focus and attention and being able to sit still, and we would do 15, maybe 20 minutes of something, and then I'd set the timer for 15, 20 minutes and be like, see you later. Go jump on the trampoline, go play DDR, go run around outside, whatever it was, because he just couldn't manage it.
Yeah.
And so I
And
think
that's
that
fine.
Yeah, and I think that, so I think that we need to also realize, especially like I said, with younger kids, and when you have younger kids even that aren't schooling yet, that the length of time you're going to be able to sit and focus is not necessarily going to be an extended period of time, and that's okay. So do little chunks throughout the day, when that works for you, when baby is napping, or
Mm,
what things can you do while you're nursing your little one? What can you oversee, and alter your schedule as such, and obviously that's going to ebb and flow, because babies and toddlers, I mean, it's the nature of the beast. But I think that that's a lot of what younger moms and moms starting out are struggling with is this, well, how am I going to homeschool this one when I have these two at home?
yeah.
And I think the number one answer to that is to be flexible, and to schedule, and not even schedule, to do in smaller chunks,
Mhm.
and alter things. Like I said, if there's something that you can do while you're nursing baby, maybe that's, you're sitting and you're doing your
Reading.
reading,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Nurse the baby and read, or if you're having, you have to feed, your toddler or whatever, put them in the high chair, bring your other one up to the kitchen table with you, and you can kind of oversee what they're doing,
Count the number of bites baby's eating.
Right.
We're
How
teaching
many?
counting today.
And so I think that's a big thing is when you're starting out or not starting out, you've been doing it for a while, is be flexible with what you're doing. Be um, attuned to what is working and isn't working, and be okay. Let yourself be okay with the fact that you might need to change. You may go 2, 3 years with something that's working great, and then your kid just hits teenage years and the hormones rage, or whatever it is, and then suddenly what you were doing isn't working. And that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you or something wrong with that child, or it means that things have shifted, and you maybe need to reevaluate and adjust that accordingly. And for me, the number one thing is to be okay with that, because sometimes it's hard for me. I can recognize in my head that we need to change, or we need to cut some slack, or we need to do something different, but the rest of me is still going, okay, I need to be okay with this. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we all need to realize that we're not going to have stellar days every day. There are
right.
going to be days. There's one mom in the group right now who was homeschooling, and she's having some struggles with her. I think her grandfather is close to dying, and she's trying to persevere and push through. And everybody in the group's like, no, just stop. Just you're miserable. You don't want to make your kids miserable. You've got so much going on. Life will catch. Deal with life and then catch up with school. Don't stress over this. And I think that we especially when we first start out, we're a little bit hesitant to put school on hold because we've been told over and over and over and over again by everybody around us that we can't do it anyway. And so, we want to push through. There's this desire to push through. And sometimes you just have to stop. You just have to say, okay, we're going to pick this back up next week or tomorrow or whatever. Not don't be afraid to just throw it to the wolves for the day or two.
Or gasp, leave a unit undone.
I
Don't,
know.
like, walk away from it. I mean, we compare ourselves to school because that's our measure, and we all know in school that they don't finish every chapter, every whatever. And we live in New York State, which is a more stringent state as far as the regulations go. And the regulation state, we have to complete at least 80% of what we have laid out. So that's 20% that you have laid out that you don't have to do legally. Like, walk away. Let it, we've said we've just dropped stuff and been like, all right, forget it. Never mind.
Yeah.
We're
That
done.
was a good idea. It didn't work out. It
Right.
was planned well, but oh well, didn't implement or whatever. So,
And so
and
I
I think,
think I
yeah,
think
I
it's
think that's a good
everyone
point.
everyone needs to have grace and flexibility, and to be okay, to allow themselves to be okay with that there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with dropping something because it's really just causing more grief than could
Mm.
possibly be worth. There's nothing wrong with taking a break. My father-in-law passed away during the time that I was homeschooling. And my daughter, my littlest, was 18 months at the time, and my oldest was 8. And we just stopped. I had people in our house nonstop. People, it was sudden, and people are grieving and mourning, and my husband couldn't function for 3.5 weeks, and we just stopped. It
Yeah.
was, what, and we picked back up where we were, and I don't remember whether we finished everything that year or we didn't, but it really didn't matter because at the time there were things that were more important, and we're 7 years out from that, and you wouldn't know. My kids weren't
Yeah.
scarred for life because we stopped for a few weeks because, what was going on personally at home was more important. And in fact,
Very
I think
true.
our kids are better off for it. They were able to to be with all of us and to experience it and to learn to deal with situations like that, and to
Yeah.
see us deal with them. And
I
so it was
lost
a learning experience in and of itself.
lost my mom and my dad during the time that we've been homeschooling. And my dad, we did hospice. And so I was literally not at home for a month. I went to North Carolina and took care of my dad for a month. So yeah, we've had to adjust through those. And if we were on such a strict schedule, um, we could I couldn't have done that. But it was more important for me, it was the last month of my dad's life, for me to spend that time with him. And they understood that. They understand that we put people and relationships first, always,
Yep.
not curriculum, and not, and homeschooling really is a lifestyle. I think that's the last thing I'd like to really end on is helping moms. We get so wrapped up in curriculum, and we get so wrapped up in, the best this or the right, the most, aligned with this or not aligned with that. And we're constantly looking for, that bright, shiny, perfect solution for curriculum. But in reality, I think they all will work really great. I think we need to get to the point that we look at homeschooling not as a curriculum but as a lifestyle. How does it, for you, what does that look like in your house? What does lifestyle look like in your house?
Oh, it was funny because I didn't realize when we started homeschooling really that it wasn't compartmentalized. Like to me, it was going to be compartmentalized.
Yeah,
Like it
yeah.
was school and that was it. And I
That's
mean,
exactly what these moms think too. So I'm glad you said that. That's right.
and I felt that way, like, oh, this was just I'm going to homeschool, and that's going to be like this chunk of my life. And I mean, there's also lots of talk. I mean, you can't lose your marriage in homeschooling. You can't, you have to be careful because while it is a lifestyle, I think that a lot of us homeschool and it becomes a lifestyle because it's about our family, and so you need
Hmm.
to just be careful when you're doing that you're making yourself a priority, that you're making your relationship with your husband a priority, that you do take that time. It's okay, and I struggle with that myself sometimes. And so I thought, oh, it's going to be compartmentalized. It is not compartmentalized. It's you hear my children talking next to me. It's a part of our life, and I found that it becomes a really nice flow. It's sort of everything kind of becomes a teaching moment, but you don't think of it that way. It's just
Right.
it's a natural conversation that happens. It's a natural flow of questions or answers, or everything is a learning experience. And I just think being able to have the kids home allows for more of that. Like I said, right now granted we're on break for the summer, but right now my daughter is painting with her grandparents. She's painting her bedroom. There's a lot to be learned from learning how to do things around your home, to learn to swing a hammer and use a paintbrush. And, those are all things that are really important. And I know you guys are doing a lot of stuff in your house,
Yeah.
as well. And, when I met my husband, he couldn't swing a hammer. Then we completely renovated our first house with the help of my father and mother, and my dad's kind of jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. And there was a lot to be learned there, and a lot of money to be saved when you can do things yourself. And so having the kids home allows you the time and the flexibility to ebb and flow with life and to do those things. And so it
I
doesn't
agree.
become compartmentalized. It kind of becomes a flow. I mean, when you can do field trips and you can take vacations and everything is not on a school schedule because you're not answering to the school district, it really becomes a way of life. It's like now, we're talking about we don't go over spring break usually. We go right after spring. What is spring break? It's cheaper. There's less people, and we can do that because we
Okay.
homeschool, and so it allows you that flow. And so where I thought it was just gonna be like, yep, between the hours of 9 and 2, we're gonna school, and that's it. And that's, and I'm very, I'm a lot more schooly than a lot of people are. I mean, I'm very aware of that. I am. And, but that really isn't how it goes, and like I said, sometimes, we get to stuff at night, or we're doing something on the weekends because there was something else that, we wanted to do more during the week, that, something that arose, or whatever. There's been times my husband has done things with the kids, like make a volcano, and I was away somewhere, and they created this massive structure and dinosaurs and the whole thing, and erupted the volcano, and it just allows for that more free flowing. And so I think that's why it becomes not compartmentalized, because it's not, okay, you have to be on the bus at 9 and you'll be home at 2, or, it's very much a part of your home and a part of your life. Our daughter's a competitive gymnast. There's times she's had competitions and has come home at 1, 2 in the morning on what would be a Monday morning, like you're getting in late that night. And, where her friends are getting up and going to school, I'm letting her sleep in, and we found that we believe that's the reason she's been healthier oftentimes than a lot of her friends, because she can get the sleep that she needs. So
Mhm.
in that way, I think that's how this lifestyle ebbs and flows. Instead of being just oh yeah, I homeschool.
Yeah.
It becomes a
Yeah.
part of your life.
We do that. That's exactly how we everything becomes conversational. It's the topics are, like you said, they're organic, they flow, they just happen. And I liked your idea about taking a notebook. Your iPhone also probably has that recorder on there. Doesn't it have a recorder where you can
Oh
record
yeah.
notes? You can make a note to yourself.
Yep.
Um, so there's ways to track that, and even my kids, they're all, as I'm sitting here watching one, they're all into Roblox. We're off. I told y'all we're off, and since I'm doing mentoring moms, they're not outside painting. But anyway, they're all into this Roblox, which is very much like Minecraft. And my oldest son is scripting. He's writing Lua. He's creating, and so that was sort of the agreement, was that if you're going to be all into these games, let's just not play them. Let's create them. Let's write them. Let's play with them. Let's modify them. And so I think you can make almost any experience to be something fun educationally. It doesn't have to be a chore educationally. It can still be fun and be educational, and them learn something from it. So
I know our kids love Minecraft, and they recently started. They're trying out those Scrafty Minecraft classes, and
yeah.
so like my oldest is learning all about the periodic table and building. They're building things in Minecraft. It's and my younger one, not my oldest, my middle is, and my youngest is doing animal habitats, and she's literally getting plots of land and creating the habitats, and
I love
and
that.
putting
I've
animals
actually
in
been
it. Yeah.
thinking about that myself, because I had kept them off Minecraft, and really it turns out Minecraft and Roblox are almost exactly the same. So,
Mm.
but that's another example of how it's a lifestyle. Again, it's a lifestyle. That's a game that they enjoy playing, and now we're putting an educational twist on it to make it more palatable, honestly, for mom, for us moms to play.
Yeah.
So, but it works. They're learning and they're enjoying it, and why not enjoy it?
It's like a win-win.
Education.
It's like, well, if
Yeah,
you're going to play Minecraft, then you need to work on your Scrafty class,
there
and
you go.
oh, okay, it means they get to play Minecraft, but they are have to learn something else in
I
the
love
process
that.
too,
I
and
love
so it's
that.
kind of a give and take, and it that makes it, okay, like you said, palatable for mom, because
Yep. Well, I hope we have been beneficial. I know, having Dorinda and Lisa here, both of them have graduated kids, and they have a completely different way of homeschooling than Heidi and I. And so I know that flavor was missing today, and maybe we'll do this again next week. So that we can, talk about it again, maybe a little different perspective. But
I love hearing their perspectives.
I know, I do too. They're mentoring us just as much as they're mentoring y'all. You know that,
Yep.
right? So,
Mhm.
but we do appreciate having them. And Lisa actually popped in and said she couldn't find Wi-Fi. She just didn't want to go to Starbucks. Y'all know that, right? That's what it is.
Mhm.
But anyway, she's out of town, and so she's not used to her normal hangout, so it's a little bit more difficult. But we do appreciate y'all being here, and we'll do this again next week. And thank you for being a part of it, and we hope it's been beneficial. And in the meantime, if there's questions or comments or issues that y'all want us to talk about, you can either email us off of our Facebook page, or you can come into and join our community, which is you can just search it. It's Hip Homeschool Moms Community on Facebook. Okay, Heidi, tell them your website before we
Uh,
leave.
startsaat8.com. You can find me blogging.
Yep, yep. Heidi has a whole lot going on right now about high school, since she is doing the big high school thing now. So, and don't you have a series going right now
I
on
have
high
a couple
school?
of series. Yeah, well, I'm doing a high school literature series. I have a series on CLEPing,
Oh, that's
getting
right.
college
That's the
credit
one I'm watching. Hmm.
through CLEP. Yep, I got that I've been working on too. And yeah, so I do a lot of focus on high school stuff, and I do a lot of unit studies for elementary ages. That's kind of like my big spot where I'm at right now. Yep.
Yeah. And of course, I'm one of the owners of Hip Homeschool Moms, but I also have my own blog, which is Live and Learn Farm, and we're more Montessori hands-on. I focus on the businesses of the boys that they're doing and things like that. So, anyway, come join us, come visit us, check us out, and we will talk to you next week this time. And sorry we missed last week, and sorry we missed Lisa and Dorinda today, but we'll talk soon. Y'all have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.